Welcome. I am Ana Maria Montero, and you're watching the 4th episode of our special series on human resources in collaboration with Universum, the global specialist in employer branding. Now, if you're a business student looking to work in the pharmaceuticals industry, odds are that this company is on your wish list of employers. And we, today, have the numbers to prove it. According to Universum's 2018 global survey, the Swiss multinational is in the top 50 most attractive companies to work for in the world, coming in, as you can see, at number 49, while taking the number 1 spot in Switzerland among students of natural science. Now, a telling part of Universum's global survey is that they also ask participants to address how they perceive the companies by identifying keywords they associate with them. In the case of Novartis, not too surprisingly, these are innovation, there it is, search, and drugs. Why then does young talent focus on Novartis? Well, according to them, the top reasons they cited was the work environment, and which they describe as creative and dynamic, as well as, not unlike other companies we profiled from this survey already, interaction with international colleagues. Now, if we widen out now and look at some general job market trends, also a part of the survey, we've got these numbers which are geared towards Swiss professionals. We find that 41% of them are interested in changing their employer within the coming year. That means 2019, 41% of them will change their jobs. Meanwhile, 29% are likely to recommend their current employer. So, i.e., I am a happy employer at Novartis. That's what 29% of them would say. So what do these results mean for the company? And how does the pharma giant manage the recruitment of young talents? Well, who better to ask than the gentleman joining us today at the table, Steven Baert. He is Chief Human Resources Officer at Novartis. Welcome.
Hi, Ana Maria.
So lovely to have you. Now, before we get into these numbers and your impression, et cetera, tell me, you are basically, we'd say the last 20 years at least, a human resources career professional, held many different positions, including now Chief of Human Resources at Novartis. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Many things, but over time it became really what we're all about. So knowing that you have an impact, that the work that you do ultimately leads to making this world a little bit better.
Okay.
And so I have had friends that were impacted by cancer. Knowing that I personally am part of a group of people that is kind of working feverishly to come up with solutions there does make a difference. So I am really into this purpose of finding solutions for the most challenging healthcare problems. And it's just a privilege to do that with a group of people who are bright, who are motivated, who bring their passion and their ideas to work. I am having a lot of fun.
I can see that. You do come across as someone who's very passionate about your work. So if we look at these numbers, because of course, without your team and without the people that you hire, these end goals could not be met. Now, if we look at this Universum survey, you know, you've got number 49. Was it surprising at all? 49 in the world.
Exactly. So definitely honored and pleased with it. And also, we see that the world will become more and more competitive to be able to attract the best talents. So we also are very committed to do better even there. I would love to see those numbers go up, but I definitely already celebrate our success here. Yeah.
And number 1 among natural science?
Yes. That's right in our target group. Of course, exactly. we go broader, but as a company that is all about innovation and health, this is really a very important recognition and very reassuring for us also that we will continue to attract the best scientists to our company. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned just now innovation. That also comes up as one of the words that describe Novartis. So innovation, search, drugs. Is there anything missing off that list where you're like, well, that's great, but I wish we were also seen as, or people were looking for?
For me, it goes back to purpose. So, and I think it's very important when you do a job that you also feel that that job is meaningful, that you're contributing to something. And so you're innovating for what? And in our case, we are innovating because we want to kind of reimagine medicines. We want to find a way to extend and improve people's lives. So I think we need to get that message across, that it's not just innovation, but that you're contributing to an amazing purpose, and that is, one, very good for society, good for the company, but also very fulfilling as a talent or a person working on these things.
And again, dynamic work environment, interaction with international colleagues. These have come up actually in the other interviews that we've done, UBS, ABB. There seems to be a young talent really seems to be interested in this international aspect.
Yeah, and I think that is very positive, because the time that the smartest in the class could solve a problem on his own or on her own, I think it's way in the past. And you see it even in a lot of research that the concept of one super person is actually leading to worse outcomes than a team that really works together and builds on each other's ideas. And so for us also, if we are a knowledge business, our biggest asset is our people. But it's how they build on each other, how they learn from each other, how they challenge each other. And so to see it here as also something that our people and our future people value is very reassuring, because I think it will ultimately lead to better work, better ideas, better innovation, which then leads, of course, to new solutions. And then, again, the fun starts.
I hear you describing a bit about the culture,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing of the company of Novartis. And you guys have been, and this idea of unbossing, because this has been a transformation that's been ongoing since the coming in, I would say, of CEO Vas Narasimhan.
Absolutely. He's a big believer of this. It's not just personal passion of his. He's in the first place also a scientist. He's a medical doctor.
Quite different from previous CEOs, right?
Yeah. And he has analyzed what really drives people's motivation and behavior. I think the work that summarizes it best is the work of Dan Pink, where he, after analyzing all this work, comes to the conclusion what people really drives, and the book is even called Drive, is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. What that means is when your most precious asset, your biggest benefit is your people, how do you create an environment where they can bring their best ideas to work?
So how do you do that, especially with young talent?
Yeah, well, so first of all, by believing that the solution is with them, not with the leaders. So you kind of flip the pyramid.
Okay.
And you become a servant leader. So you don't have a team in support of the boss, you have a boss in support of the team. And so you create clarity for the team and say, hey, here is a problem we're trying to solve. Yeah. You then create an environment that is safe and stimulating, where people can exchange ideas. You give them the resources and the freedom and the support they need, and you're there to help them solve when they solve problems or when they hit an obstacle. So it's really a concept of flipping the pyramid of every time the manager is in support of the team, rather the team that is there to provide the manager with information so that that manager can take it to the next level.
And how successful is that flipping? Because that requires quite a change in mentality.
It's probably the most difficult goal you can set. It's therefore also our number one priority at the company. But we believe that if we can change that culture, that all the rest will follow. Because when you hire bright people, motivate people, the rest will follow. But it takes time, but it's naive to think that time will bring the solution. You need to take a lot of steps. And so it's a lot of interesting work. You start with making sure everybody knows where you want to go.
So communication is key.
Yes. And so not just top-down. We did massive crowdsourcing efforts. We had people weigh in. So whilst we had an idea in which direction we wanted to go, we had all of our associates contribute to what it was, where we had to go. So starting with knowing what it is and defining it, right, and understanding it. Then I think the second thing is making sure people can apply it. And so there's one thing wanting to go there. There's another thing now leading differently. And so we are currently upskilling our 300 most senior leaders, including the executive committee, during a 12-month journey to really learn to lead again.
So really having to change that chip, showing them how to do this.
Yes.
Now, how much of this were you already on board with when Voz came on, this transformation? Were you already in that mindset, or did it also require that you change the way that you approached your job?
It's a fantastic question, because if you would have asked me when he just started, I would say, yeah, I am on board. I'm already that kind of leader, and let me help the others to go there. What we often see is that leaders lack self-awareness, and so there is no organizational change. There's only individual change. If I change, if all of us change, we will get there. And so I took a lot of surveys. I took a lot of feedback from my own team, and I learned where I had to evolve. And it's just, you start to grow again, you start to learn again, you start to become better at the things that you do. So from the beginning, I've been on board with the vision, but I think I'm today already a better leader than I was a year ago. And I hope when we see each other in a year that I've grown again. And that's what we expect from all of our associates, not just the leaders, every level, constantly curiosity, learn new things, constant learning.
Well, that is the time that we're living in. I mean, I think the fourth industrial revolution, as we've been calling it, is really about learning constantly. You know, we no longer can depend on what we knew before. Do you have any specific examples that come to mind about things you've had to change? Anything that...
Well, so we have to change all of our people processes, and how you hire to how you promote. But specifically in the space of learning, whilst the need is there to constantly learn, the technology is also there to make it easy. So gone are the days that you have classroom trainings, that your manager nominates you, and that you fly to a place to start on Sunday evening a 5-day course, and you believe you've... It's now real-time, on-demand learning. It's empowered directly. The people can choose what it is they want to learn because they're closer to it. So making it easy, making it immediately accessible, and giving permission to people to learn. You don't need an approval. If you think you need to learn something, go for it. And our role is to make sure we make it available to you.
And in recruitment especially, I mean, social media plays even more and more a role. I mean, I saw that I've seen Voz, again, we call him Voz, first name.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
he goes by Voz. Everybody knows him by Voz. So,
but he's actually done, interviews with LinkedIn, for example, really using these sort of, because part of his, also, his push, the thing that he's focused on, is this digital transformation, which, as we know, the pharmaceutical industry has been a bit slow to get on board with.
One, we're lucky it comes very natural to him. So he's a very curious person himself, so he's constantly learning, experimenting, and therefore also very eager to connect and learn through social media. But
it requires that you hire different, it just requires that you hire, when you make that shift in that transformation to more of a digital company, you also have to hire different kinds of people with different kinds of skills, which is kind of part of this whole learning we're talking about.
Yes, and to a certain extent, it's an evolution, because I think we talk a lot about digital, but what we really believe is that it's a smarter use of data. So you clean your data and you get insights through your data that you then provide to your smart people. We don't think that necessarily digital will replace people in the workplace. We think that
that's an important thing for your employees to hear, because I'm sure that with the onset of AI and more of these, these digital, what do you call them, assistants and things like this that are coming up, people are a little afraid. So,
well, if we all know the story of what was it, the Big Blue, the chess computer that beat the best chess player in the world. But we never talk about what would have happened if we equip the best chess player in the world with the computer and they play together. And so if you start again that we want to, our biggest enemy is cancer or any disease.
Yeah.
So we don't want to replace our associates or our people with a computer. We want to equip our people with the best intelligence available so that they can make faster, better decisions. Right. And so it is in our research and development where we are really creating data lakes, and we do structured and unstructured analysis on the data to see whether there are signals that could be the beginning of a cure to disease. And so we see a big opportunity to broaden and accelerate innovation there. In sales, it's about equipping our sales reps with real-time insights, so that before they meet with a physician, that they get real-time relevant data to discuss with this customer, so that it's not generic visual aid, but that it's real information.
So speaking of transformation, one of the things that happened was just in September. I was here in the office. I remember when 2,000 employees had to be let go from Switzerland, 16%. What was that like for you?
Well, it's you started this interview by what gets you out of bed. These are definitely not the things you enjoy doing, and you don't make these decisions lightly. Right. So you want to make sure you look after and take care of every single individual, because it's not just a number; it's a person who has given a lot to the company, who has a family. We announced 2,000 jobs, but we also stand for transparency. So it's over a period of 4 years. It is, and at the same time, we announced that we're creating a new cell and gene manufacturing plant in Switzerland, where we will create 500 new jobs. But as it is over a period of 4 years, we will work with our people to redeploy them, reskill them, hopefully internally, because we've given ourselves time and we've been transparent with them, so we can start to work with our people. And then, of course, you also want to make sure you look after those people for whom it will be harder to find a new job. People that have for many years worked in the same field. So there we've worked with our social partners to also create a softer landing, so that for people that will be harder to redeploy, we have solutions to also help them with early retirements or with bridging solutions to retirement. I think as a company, if you want to be always the best at what you do, you need to have the courage to constantly reinvent yourself. And that means that you need to change the way you're working. That means you need to change your structures. And that means that certain jobs will disappear and certain new jobs will be created. And then ideally, you want to make sure you help your people to move from that one job to that other job. And that's what we're doing and going to do over the coming 4 years.
I can't imagine it was easy. It seems like flexibility more and more is what employees have to be these days, all of us. Yeah. We have to be willing to change because everything is changing so fast. Yeah,
yeah. We live in a world full of ambiguity, volatility, and so it's not when you walk through the doors of a company that changes. And so...
or these predictable career paths that we've had in the past, is so different. I am a woman. Clearly, it is an important topic for me to know how diversity is being dealt with, because we've had again other people sitting where you are today from other companies we've interviewed. UBS in particular is struggling to get their women to the top. What is Novartis doing to support and to empower females? Yeah.
So we start from the joint objective that we have. So again, we want to overcome the most difficult healthcare challenges. So you need to be able to tap into a broad diversity of experiences, backgrounds. Our biggest asset is our people. So for us, diversity is not kind of just let's do the right thing. It's a necessity. We cannot succeed unless we have a diversity at our company. And definitely that includes gender, that includes ethnic, that includes sexual orientation, everything.
So inclusion in general.
The broadest sense. So we have currently 42% of women in management. 28% of our executives are female leaders. And of course, you see that also represented in our board and in our executive committee. That's not enough. We definitely want to do.
I'm glad that you agree,
it's
because
not enough.
4 out of 13 women on the board of directors is not a lot.
Yes, we have more work to do, and we're committed to that.
How? How are you going to do this?
Well, so first of all, we see that internal promotions are always the best way to go. Okay. So we work a lot with our up-and-coming talents to give them as much support and exposure as possible. Okay. So whether that is through already giving them senior coaches, because giving them transparency in what it takes to do a job at a certain level, because we see actually that a lot of people opt out at a certain level because of certain beliefs that they have, or because of the lack of flexibility. Yes, yeah. Yes. So therefore, we're also going very deep into flexibility. In the end, what matters is what you bring, not where you work, when you work. So, of course, in order to work together, there are some core essential rules to work together, but flexibility and working where and when you want to work and working part-time is also very important. And then it's also a matter of, it's a life cycle, supporting our women, our talents in different moments of their life, because you can't always expect to be 100% at work every day.
I mean, nobody can.
No.
I mean, especially if you have, family at home, or, for men and women, it's the same. Now, do you find that in the 20 years since you started your career, basically, has this conversation changed dramatically to today? I mean, did we have these conversations 20 years ago?
So it has changed. I am always surprised that the change year on year goes slower than you expect, and then when you look back 5 years, you see tremendous change. I think that what I welcome is that it's now a real dialogue. It used to be, and I know I'm at risk here, but it used to be white men talking about the importance of diversity. What we now have is we have a real honest dialogue. And so that's the great thing also of having the diversity in your executive committee, so that you can have those honest discussions and that you can actually start to think about some of the unconscious biases that are out there, or that you can tackle some of the stereotypical beliefs that are out there. And so having, therefore, a better understanding, a better dialogue, talking to your associates, say, what is it? We see that there is kind of something holding this group back from taking the next step. So what is it? And how can we overcome that obstacle is what I see now, versus where 10 years ago it would be much more purely a target and driven by men who wanted to hit a certain target.
Now, you have a couple of teenagers at home.
Yes.
What are you telling them about what should they have in mind as they think about entering the workforce, entering real life, and what are you telling them about leadership?
So first of all, I try to inspire them a bit with stories. So because I think stories always resonate better than wisdom. And so I try to share my good moments, and I also try to share my bad moments and what I learned from them. I try to be a bit of a coach to them, and at the same time expose them to as many things as possible, because they will need to make their choices. We can't make the choices for them. And the only thing that is constant in there is some core values.
Okay, like what?
For example, respect. A value is don't judge before you have heard somebody else's perspective or before you have really stepped into their shoes. Don't assume too quickly, so keep an open mind. We've been lucky that we've lived in different places, and so that you learn to look at things from a different perspective, different angle. Yeah. And I have a deep belief that the vast, vast majority of people shows up every day with the very best intentions. So if there is something that surprises you, try to first understand where they come from before you judge and impose your view on them. And that's kind of a value we try to live at home as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steven, so much for your time today and for joining us on The Newsmaker. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.